All right, it's been, I don't know, 1 year already when it was supposed to come out, but then due to COVID pandemic, it got postponed by 1 year, I think, and for that reason we got it 1 year later. But anyways, we still got it, so let's talk about it. And yes, the movie I'm talking about is Black Widow. I'm pretty sure many of you had been waiting for the movie as well, and I was also very interested to see what happens in this movie, even though the main character of this movie, had already died in a previous movie, and that movie was Avengers Endgame. But but I personally thought that this movie was supposed to the purpose of the movie was to try to make up for the fact that Black Widow's death wasn't given enough recognition as Iron Man's death was in Avengers Endgame, because no one really talked about Black Widow's death. Everyone kept talking about Iron Man, like Tony Stark, rest in peace. We're gonna miss him. Great performance by Robert Downey Jr. He'll never be forgotten. He can never be replaced. People kept talking about, but no one ever talked about Black Widow and how she sacrificed to get a stone that was supposed to bring everyone back. Thanos had wiped out. No one gave her credits for that. But this movie did a great job, giving her a farewell and just answering a lot of unanswered question about the character of Black Widow, like how she reached where she did reach, and that was like how did she reach to the position of being an Avenger. And this movie, I think, did a pretty decent job explaining all that. So one scene I'm talking about would be the Budapest scene with Black Widow and Yelena Belova, her sister. She talks about how Clint came to kill her, but then he made a different call and saved her instead, and took her to Shield, and that's how she joined Shield. And then after time went by, she also became an Avenger too. So that was very interesting to learn. And then we also have this. First of all, the fact that this movie had a lot of things about Black Widow which we never got to learn about. Like there's a scene in the Avengers movie where like Loki tells Black Widow something about Dracov's daughter, and we don't know who Dracov was until we watch this movie, and we just learn a lot about her which we should have learned before she died, but then they never talked about it. But then here now they are talking about it after she died. So first of all, this movie, I think, so it takes place after Civil War. So I remember in the beginning of the movie where she's escaping from Thunderbolt Ross, who was after all those people who supported Captain America's team, including Black Widow, because even though she was on Team Iron Man, she kind of betrays Iron Man's team and then starts supporting Cap, and that's why she also becomes a fugitive. And in order to escape from him, she has to go back to her home country where her adopted family were, or the family who adopted her were living in, and that family consisted of Yelena Belova and I think Jim Hopper too. Sorry, not Jim Hopper, but Red Guardian. Sorry, the actor who played Red Guardian also played Jim Hopper. So I was just thinking of Jim Hopper whenever I saw that character in the movie. So okay, if you don't know this, Red Guardian was like this Russian version of Captain America. He's supposed to be this very strong and fast character, but then he's also really fat too, because as time went by he got older and he got fatter too. But then honestly speaking, I don't think he would really stand a chance against Captain America, or standing a chance is a bit too strong of a word, but I think Captain America would still beat him even if he was of normal shape. Just my opinion, that's it. But let's move on to the best part of this movie, and that's the fact that how these action scenes are choreographed, or not choreographed but filmed. I just really liked the action scenes. I think it's just a Black Widow movie. It's kind of expected for the action scenes to be really good, given the fact that she's really good at fighting. And just similar to how Captain America is good at fighting, but with super strength and super speed. Now there's still lot of not a lot of, but a couple of things which did not go well with me. And I'm talking about the villain, for example, Taskmaster, and the fact that this movie felt so much like Captain America the Winter Soldier. To be honest, what I noticed from this movie was that this movie was so similar to Captain America the Winter Soldier, but without the super soldier serum. Allow me to explain. So there's this thing called the red room in this movie. It's similar to Hydra, in my opinion. The reason why I say this is because, like, the concept of the Red Room was to like kidnap girls and to brainwash them to become assassins. And then, if you don't know about Hydra from Captain America: The Winter Soldier, they also like kind of like brainwashed super soldier, or not super soldier, but people, not just girls, but like even men too, to like become super soldiers and become really and then of course like get the super strength and super speed, and train them to become really good at fighting and assassinate people they want them to. And the character in this movie who was exactly in, not in this movie but in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, who was exactly like this kind of character, who was supposed to have this role, was, I think, not I think, but it was the Winter Soldier itself, the character this movie is about, or not about. The movie was about Captain America, but like the villain of this movie was the Winter Soldier, who was no one else but Captain America's best friend, I think, Bucky Barnes. And however, Taskmaster, on the other hand, who is actually the daughter of Dreykov, who is actually the founder of the Red Room, similar to Alexander Pierce, who was like the founder of, or not founder, but he was like the head of the Hydra organization, similar to, and similarly, Dreykov was also the head of the Red Room organization. I felt like no, the fact that they were like controlling this assassin throughout the whole movie. In Dreykov's situation, it was Taskmaster, and in Alexander Pierce's situation, it was the Winter Soldier. Felt so similar. However, if you compare Taskmaster to Winter Soldier, he has his own fight moves. He has a metal arm, whereas Taskmaster, he copies fight moves of the opponent and thus beats the opponent. So in terms of like authenticity of fight moves, I feel like Winter Soldier would be better. And even as a character, also Winter Soldier was much better. What I mean by this is like both of these characters had a scene where like they finally reveal their face towards the end of the movie. The problem with Taskmaster was that she was a lot more predictable than Winter Soldier. We did not know who Winter Soldier was going to be until you read the comics, and then that it's actually Bucky Barnes. But throughout the whole movie, for people who didn't read the comics and watch the movie, it would be hard to say who the Winter Soldier truly was, until like Steve actually finally pulled off his mask and he said the name Bucky. But then Taskmaster, on the other hand, we kind of knew that she was going to it was going to be like Dreykov's daughter, even though like there's a scene where like Black Widow, actually Natasha Romanoff, actually kills Dreykov's daughter. She survives, and this is not the first time you have seen something like that, like someone faking a death to finally be revealed towards the end of the movie. This is not something very new, no, nothing really authentic. And that's why due to that I felt like Taskmaster was less interesting compared to Winter Soldier. And however, the action scenes were still pretty decent in Black Widow, like I was saying. For example, the scenes with Taskmaster and Black Widow, there's a scene like where she attacks Black Widow with this arrow, bow and arrow, similar to how Hawkeye would. And then that bow and the arrow was actually a grenade that like blew up the car which Black Widow and Yelena were sitting in, which was actually similar to one more scene in The Winter Soldier. And that was a scene where Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, attacks Nick Fury's car with his grenade. He like shoots this grenade and then his car flips over. But then like by the time when the Winter Soldier comes to the car, Fury has already escaped. Similar to how both Natasha and Yelena escape from the car the moment Taskmaster comes to their car after flipping it over with a grenade arrow. But then I think this movie still like did a poorer job than Winter Soldier in terms of like the scenes that were like, or the scenes and the ideas that were like that were similar to the Winter Soldier movie. I still felt like Winter Soldier was still better overall. And there's still like a couple of things this movie has me excited for. One thing was, the one scene was where like Yelena is like paying tribute to Natasha Romanoff, given that she's already dead. And then we have like Agent Val, or not Agent, but Valeria Fontaine, I think that's her name, because she was also there in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And she actually tells her how Hawkeye was the one who killed her, but in reality Hawkeye was the one who's trying to sacrifice his life, and it was Natasha, or aka Black Widow, who was the one who kills herself instead, sacrifices herself instead. However, she falsely accuses Clint Barton of killing Natasha Romanoff in Vormir, and now Yelena is like really mad at him. Now she's going to try to find out a way to kill him. And whether you know this or not, she's actually going to be there in the Hawkeye series. So I'm very excited to see how they sort it out together, how Clint Barton and Yelena Belova sort it out. But I also just noticed one thing. I don't know whether I should really like talk about this. I don't know whether it's really that big of a deal, but I personally thought it was a big deal, given the fact that Black Widow, she, if you have noticed, but she doesn't get to know her mother's name throughout the whole movie, even until she dies. Because there's a scene where she asks Dreykov her mother's name, her biological mother's name, and then Dreykov tells her unknown, right? So that way, she doesn't get to know her mother's name. So then the next opportunity she had to get to know her mother's name was in Vormir, when Red Skull tells her whom she's the daughter of. Instead of telling her mother's name, he tells her her father's name. It's something like Ivan Romanov or something like that. But I think the first name was Ivan. But the fact that she doesn't get to know her mother's name, which was probably sad for her, and then without knowing her mother's name, we saw her like sacrifice herself for the Soul Stone. So thinking about it, I thought it might have been very sad for her how like she didn't get to know her mother's name until she even died, and that way she never really got to know her mother's name. I just noticed it. I thought I should like mention it. But anyways, that was it for this video. Tell me what you thought about this video and this movie if you have watched it. Until next time, I'll see you later.